Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, The Tech Effect, How Retailers Are Attracting Omnichannel Male Shoppers. My name is Ashley Brown, and I'm a member of the Product Solutions team here at Simmons Research. I'll be moderating today's session, so before we get started, I do have a few logistics to go over with you. Given the high attendees on our call today, everybody has been placed in listen-only mode, so you will not be able to speak during the call. If you do have any questions or comments, please make sure that you send them through the questions box. We will be addressing questions at the end of the presentation. Just a reminder that all attendees will be receiving a copy of today's presentation and a recording of the webinar within the next few business days. Today's speaker is Gretchen Goditis. She's a senior project manager here on our custom research team. At this point, I'm going to head things over to Gretchen and she can go ahead and get started.
Thanks, Ashley, and hi, everyone. As Ashley mentioned, the purpose of today's webinar is to talk about opportunities for men in the retail space. But before we actually get into that data, I just want to take a minute to talk about why we at Simmons have decided to hone in on men in the first place. We're definitely not discounting the role of women in the retail space, and we realize that in many ways they're still the more active shoppers. However, recognizing men's role in the space is increasingly important, really because of their sheer population size in the country. We have data here from the US Census that shows us that as of 2016, there were just over 159 million men in the country, and that's actually slightly less than half of our population, 49.2% to be exact. But it's pretty fair to say that there are nearly as many men as there are women in the US, and as a group, their buying power is equal to, if not more than men, or I'm sorry, than women. And it becomes even more important to gain an understanding of men and their changing role in society, specifically as it relates to younger generations. Millennials, which Simmons defines as adults aged 21 to 39 this year, comprise just over a quarter of the US population, and as many of you might already know, there are several research organizations that have reported that the generation is on track to surpass baby boomers as the largest generation in the country. And when we look at millennial demos outside of age, we see that men actually comprise the larger share of this group. There are actually nearly 1 million more millennial men than there are women in this group, and while that's not a really vast difference, the group is still larger and a much different breed from men in older generations. So we're coming at this with the understanding that if we really want to understand how the millennial generation operates as a whole, we have to make more of an effort to understand the men who comprise it. Most of us already know that millennial men's approach to life differs quite a bit from men in older generations. For example, they're less likely to get married and have children, or if they are doing those things, they're waiting quite a bit longer. You know, we have data from the 2016 Gallup poll that reports that 20% of 18 to 30-year-olds were married in 2016 compared to 32% of Gen Xers and 40% of baby boomers when they were that age. The age range, again, is slightly different than how Simmons defines the millennial at 21 to 39, but the trend is really still consistent with the notion that fewer young adults are getting married. And among those who do get married and have kids, more millennial men are taking an active role at home and with raising their families. Media organizations such as the Business Insider and the New York Times have reported that this trend really stems from the fact that more millennial men than older ones were raised and are currently adulting with the belief that women and men are really on equal footing at home and in the workplace. And if you look at work trends among millennial men, many of them are willing to forego climbing the corporate ladder to take a more active role at home. And while they're doing this, becoming more active dads and maintaining the household, they're by default also joining women more frequently as becoming more active shoppers. So with that in mind, that's kind of our baseline for focusing on this group in the retail space. And with that, I will move specifically into what we're seeing in retail. Simply put, that thanks to technology, the retail landscape is changing. The internet and technology have made it increasingly easier for consumers to shop at home and on the go. And as more of us are flocking online to do more and more of our daily shopping, traditional brick and mortar stores are kind of under pressure to introduce more and more innovations to kind of keep up and keep their relevance in the space. Definition of retail and even what it means to shop nowadays is changing everywhere, and as it does, what we know about who shops and why they're shopping is really evolving as well. This is why we're saying that retail isn't really something we can just associate with women anymore, since life circumstances are dictating that men become more engaged in online and in-store shopping. So as we move forward today, we'll talk about the areas of retail where men are in the forefront, and how retailers can continue to entice them in the retail space. And we'll also talk about some areas where even more can be done to target men in retail, namely when it comes to holidays and special events, direct seller companies, and then in the beauty and retail, or I'm sorry, the beauty and grooming space as a whole. I'm gonna start today with reviewing opportunities for men in online retail. But before we do, I just wanted to take a minute to review the methodology of this study with you so you know where the data we have is coming from. All the data included in this presentation will come from our fall 2017 retail trends and technology study. It's a custom study that we have of more than 23,000 US adults aged 18 plus who qualify as some sort of a recent shopper. And when I say recent shopper, I'm specifically referring to people who have either shopped online in the last 3 months or shopped at one of a variety of types of stores in person in the last 4 weeks. And to qualify here, it could have been any type of retail store, grocery, convenience, or drugstore. So the qualifications for in-store shopping are pretty broad. All of these data are nationally representative, and they can be used in conjunction with our 60,000 plus variables of consumer data that are included within our Simmons National Consumer Study. And at the end of this presentation today, we'll talk a little bit about how you can get access to the full study if you haven't done so already. But for now, I will move into what's trending with men in online shopping. Not surprisingly, as a whole, our data confirm that US consumers are shopping more online. And specifically, nearly half of the shoppers we surveyed say that they've shopped more online in the last 6 months. This is a trend that's really touching all consumer groups in some way, but dads specifically represent a group of men here who are clearly doing more of their shopping activity online. Some 63% of millennial dads that we surveyed say that they shop more online in the last 6 months. And at 31%, this group of dads is also the least likely of all the shoppers we surveyed to have decreased their online shopping. So these data are really the first indication that we have in this study that the concept of retail and who's really participating in this space now has changed from what it was before, or at least what we thought of it as before. But as we'll cover, there are several more to look at. Overall, the majority of shoppers we surveyed say that how they research and ultimately purchase products really depends on what they're looking to buy. You know, this really makes sense because how many resources people need when they're shopping, or even how long they're willing to wait for merchandise, can really vary by product. And this is true among men too, but even so, at least certain groups of men have a higher than average tendency to want to bring the internet and online shopping into the mix in some way. At 43%, again, our key group here of millennial dads are among the least likely to say that how they shop depends on what they're buying. They're 74% more likely than all shoppers to say that they're researching products in stores, but then they're going online to buy them. And even if they're ultimately making their purchases in stores, millennial dads are about 84% more likely than all of our shoppers to at least look online first. So this group of dads as a whole, again, is bringing the internet and online shopping into some capacity into their shopping. And they're also the most likely to do all of their shopping online from the initial phase of researching their products to making their final purchases. So next, I want to take a quick look at motivations for shopping online. And the rationale here really isn't surprising. I mean, shoppers think shopping online is easier. Overall, some 74% of our respondents say that they shop online thanks to the convenience of shopping from home. And a vast majority are also motivated by things like having a wider product selection, having potentially cheaper prices, and also a wide array of free shipping options. But there's another part of the story here that has absolutely nothing to do with the act of shopping itself and more about the appeal of technology in general. Men, and again here, a key group of millennial dads, over-index the most on saying that the fact that they enjoy using technology is what's influencing their decision to shop online a lot. And by comparison here, women as a whole under-index in this area, and they're actually 25% less likely than all of our shoppers to say that enjoying technology has a big influence on how they're choosing to shop. So thinking specifically about what having an interest in technology actually means, we can conclude here that what's new and innovative may resonate more with men across the board, whether they're shopping or they're doing something else. So that being said, in addition to focusing on the appeal of online retail in general, we should take a look at how what's new in online retail is influencing men. To this end, we used our survey to ask respondents about retail subscription services. And here, I mean product subscriptions that consumers can get that would regularly send them a box of some kind of specialty good, whether it's clothes, cosmetics, or some kind of fun novelty item. Subscription boxes are really up and coming in the retail space, as many of you may know. And up until this point, like many other things in retail, they've largely been linked with women. I mean, there's some blogs who have described subscription boxes as quote unquote the perfect personalized gift for women in your life, or as something that contains the things that quote unquote every lady would enjoy receiving month after month. But the fact is, our data is showing that men, or at least certain segments of them, enjoy receiving these boxes even more than the women do. Overall, 31% of our shoppers that we surveyed say that they currently subscribe to some kind of a subscription service. However, at about 47%, dads are even more likely than all of our shoppers to be current subscribers, and that likelihood increases even more if we hone in specifically on that key group of millennial dads. Some 56% of this group is a current subscription box customer. And if we look at shares of subscribers overall, entertainment and special interest boxes have the highest subscription rates among the millennial dads, and beauty and cosmetics will follow not too far behind. We'll actually talk about this in a little bit as an opportunity area where retail can head next with men in the space. But it's really important to note at this point that dads and millennial dads specifically over-index in all of our subscription boxes that we've measured in the study. And the up-and-coming area here might just be children's product boxes. Overall, among millennial dads, there's just about 15% of them that say that they're current subscribers to these types of boxes. But that's about 5 times of all the shoppers surveyed. So again, it makes sense because they're dads, but obviously they're looking to this type of shopping opportunity to buy something for their kids. And here I'm going to shift gears just a little bit, because as long as we're talking about innovation, it's worth it to bring up another one at this point, this time in grocery, which is another area that marketers will typically consider to be women-centric. Data from our study also show that at about 14% Millennial dads are twice as likely as all shoppers to have purchased groceries by ordering online and picking up in store at some point within the last 30 days. The method of shopping overall hasn't really reached the point of becoming a major competitor for traditional in-store grocery shopping, because about 88% of all of our shoppers and 74% of millennial dads specifically are still reporting that in the last month they did their normal in-person in-store grocery shopping. However, that said, young dads are still the most inclined to try this mixed method of shopping when it comes to picking up their groceries. So to the extent that they aren't doing so already, major grocers across the US who offer these options for curbside pickup should really consider young dads as a primary target area, or as a primary target in this area of shopping. Okay, so at this point, we've already established that men, and especially dads, are shopping online, and they're shopping online more than they were before. But the fact is they're not buying everything online all the time. So I just want to do a quick review of which products are likely to have the most opportunity in online retail at this point. Our data show that in the last 30 days, men are actually over-indexing across 7 different product categories online. In terms of percentage, electronics, men's clothing, and travel-related items should really be considered the go-to product categories among men. However, we also shouldn't discount some of the smaller up-and-coming product categories like online alcohol sales. Among men aged 21 or older, alcohol over-indexes the most with this group, and they're actually 55% more likely than all shoppers to have purchased alcohol online in the last month. It's important to note here again that alcohol sales aren't overall a hot spot for online retail. The share of all of our shoppers who are saying that they've actually made these kind of purchases in the last 30 days is in the low single digits. However, to the extent that this sector is poised to grow, men, again, should be considered the go-to customers for any sort of marketing. Okay, we're going to move on next to opportunities for men in-store shopping, but to recap what we've covered so far quickly, men are shopping online more than they were before, and they're really more likely than other shoppers to consider themselves as an online shopper. The common benefits of shopping online, such as convenience, lower prices, and free shipping, are driving men to shop online just as they would women. But there are other factors at play that really have less to do with shopping than with men's general life interests. Men, especially the millennial dads, are driven to shop online because of their interest in technology. And as such, they'll be interested in not only shopping on the internet, but also shopping in new ways on the internet. Subscription services and the online grocery category have strong opportunity for growth with this group. And alcohol vendors, again, looking to expand their sales online, should really consider men as their primary target. Okay, so from here, moving into in-store shopping trends. So data from our previous section showed us that nearly half of our respondents shopped more online in the last 6 months. However, when it comes to in-store shopping, the same can be said of about 2 in 10 respondents. The group of in-store shoppers may be a little bit smaller, but its composition is pretty similar to that of the group that's been doing more shopping online. So unlike men overall, dads are among the consumers here who are most likely to have shopped more in stores in the last 6 months. And younger dads especially appear to be ahead of the curve and really could be setting the trend for men and dads with the growth in in-store shopping. It's really important to note, however, that young dads in-store shopping are not so much in line with the fact that they're dads, but more so with the fact that they're young men. Some 27% of our millennial men have shopped more in stores in the last 6 months, which is more than any other segment of men that we surveyed. And they're actually 35% more likely than all of our shoppers to have increased their in-store shopping in this time period. So if men are going more in store for their shopping. What is it that they're actually looking for when they're there? Our data suggests that much like what is driving their interest in online shopping, more men are tending to look for in-store shopping experiences that align with some component of technology. It's good news considering that many brick and mortar stores are introducing more engaging tech-enhanced in-store options to kind of keep pace with their rivals on the internet. Men, especially dads, are over-indexing the most in saying that interactive product displays and video displays can improve their in-store shopping experiences a lot. But there is another side of the coin here, and that is that more men and dads are tending to look for a customized experience that perhaps the tech interaction can help provide to some extent. For example, millennial dads are about 24% more likely than all shoppers to say that personalized attention from store employees can improve their in-store shopping experience a lot. So focusing again on specifically on technology for another minute, it's important to note that men here may also be driving much of the move towards faster in-store payment options. Among the male segments that we looked at, millennial dads at 34% are the most likely to say that having expedited checkout options in stores is very important to them. And related to this, millennial dads are the most inclined to say that they'll shop at stores when they can check out with an app rather than wait in a checkout line. And this is pretty interesting because this year, Amazon actually introduced a new retail option that feeds directly into this concept. Many of you may be familiar with the Amazon Go grocery and convenience stores that just opened up this year. First opening in Seattle, and there have been recent announcements that the stores are looking to expand into other major cities, such as San Francisco. But everything in these stores have been automated so that once customers check into the store, everything they're picking up off the shelves is tracked by Amazon sensors. The customers will be automatically billed. They don't even have to wait for a receipt, as they'll be emailed receipts when they're leaving the building. But these sensors are tracking everything that leaves the shelves and goes into the cart automatically. So it's completely circumventing that need for a traditional checkout process. And so, you know, this is important to note because if there's one good piece of advice for Amazon as they're marketing their Amazon Go locations, men, if they're not already, and young men and dads specifically, should really be the target here because they're most likely to be enticed by this sort of shopping opportunity. In the previous section, covering online retail, we discussed the fact that in addition to the tech-enhanced online shopping options, men are also most likely to be intrigued by what's new in online shopping. So along the same lines, more men seem to be drawn to what's new in in-store shopping formats. So here again, enter the new concept of the pop-up shop. By pop-up shop in our survey, we meant any kind of temporary retail location that sells or showcases products for a limited time. Men, and especially dads, are over-indexing on visits to any kind of pop-up shop in the last 6 months, but the most popular among them across all types of men are the mobile or portable pop-up shops. And the mobile concept of a pop-up shop is really up and coming across the country, but most are really localized to the area that they serve. For example, I live in Asheville, North Carolina, and there's a popular mobile shop that's actually right down the street from me called Arteries Mobile Boutique. And the seamstress has her typical location that she sets up shop every day, but she also moves across the city and even to music festivals across the East Coast to sell what she considers to be custom sustainable clothing. This is just one example. Pop-up shops are spanning all sectors of retail, and Asheville actually has a seasonal pop-up schedule in place to show residents what kind of pop-ups will be available at any time during the year, and they're most recently even expanding into unique sales of things like craft beer. So just like we covered opportunity areas in online shopping, I want to talk about opportunities in in-store shopping. And when we think about the kind of brick and mortar stores, pop-up or otherwise, that are likely to appeal to men, our Simmons data suggests that, at least in terms of raw percentages, retailers would do well to focus on alcoholic beverages. We've already talked about the fact that this is an up-and-coming opportunity for men online, despite the fact that overall just about 3% of shoppers have bought alcohol this way in the last 30 days. But it's a completely different story when it comes to in-store purchases, with more than half of our shoppers saying that they've bought alcohol in stores in the last month. At 64% though, men are especially more likely to be going in stores for beer, wine, or some other type of adult beverage of their choice. At a close second is men's clothing, with some 41% of men purchasing clothing in stores in the last month. Not surprisingly, they're over-indexing against all shoppers here, even more than they do with the alcohol purchases. And they're even more likely to have purchased clothing in stores than they are to have done so online. If you'll remember data from the previous section, while men do over-index in online clothing sales, the share that actually did so is just more than 29% compared to the 41% that we have in stores. Large shares of the alcohol and clothing sales aside, though, there's another interesting product category that might be a better focal point, and that is electronics. Men are over-indexing the most on purchasing these products in stores, and they're 26% more likely than shoppers to have made these kinds of purchases in the last month. So while the overall purchase share is quite a bit less than men's clothing at just 24%, the fact that they're over-indexing so much with these purchases is really highlighting this area as the opportunity point for in-store shopping with men. So to do just another quick recap, at least in terms of frequency of shopping, the in-store retail space hasn't seen as much change as online retail. That being said, however, there is a concentrated group of shoppers that are shopping more in stores, and dads really appear to be leading the charge among them. As with the online retail, brick and mortar stores can reach dads and to some extent all men by introducing tech-enhanced shopping options and doing what they really can do to speed up the checkout process and checkout lines in stores. However, another key in stores is to promote personalized service options and looking to what's new in-store shopping, such as the pop-up shop concept. Retailers are also likely to gain traction with men, again, if they focus on specific product areas such as the electronics, and then the other two high indexing areas of clothing and alcohol. So next, I want to talk about the fact that despite what we're already seeing in terms of how much men are already shopping online and in stores, marketers still have quite a bit of room to grow in terms of bringing more men into the retail space. So as we begin to wrap up the webinar, I wanted to take a few minutes to cover what some of their options for growth with men are. First, we need to do more to include younger men in special event promotions. Namely with millennial men. You know, they're over-indexing on shopping for several holidays and special events in the year, and of the top 6 of these, just 2 of them are actually sports related. And this is important to note because, again, it's a common misconception that, you know, if you want to push shopping with men, any sports event is going to be a key area. And while it's true, our data is showing that there are other areas to look at as well. With the exception of holidays like New Year's Eve, millennial dads are actually carrying men in this space across all of the major holidays and special events that we surveyed, and especially for holidays like President's Day and Martin Luther King Day that we're probably less likely to consider as major shopping events. But when it comes to dads, they're making some kind of purchases in this area, whether it might be something related to their kids in school or something else. Another thing to think about is that weddings and engagements are two other events where millennial men deserve a little bit more consideration. They're not as likely on the whole to have made purchases for these events as they are some of the other events that we just talked about on the previous slide. But what we're seeing here is that when they do make purchases for weddings or engagements, they're more likely to be big spenders in the area. The 21 to 39-year-old men here are about 50% more likely than all the shoppers we surveyed to have spent $501 or more on engagements or weddings in the last year. And they're actually outpacing millennial women in this space who are under indexing at about 12%. So with this in mind, marketers who are wanting to promote high-end gifts for brides and grooms are likely to have more luck with millennial men and should consider them to be targets. Okay, thinking about a product space where women truly are the more active participants, we can turn to direct seller companies. And by direct sellers, we mean companies whose operation relies on consumers to become distributors of their products and sell them directly to customers on their behalf. Participation in this type of retail is actually pretty low among both genders, but our data is confirming that men really have the most room to grow in this space. They're about 29% less likely than women to use direct seller products and about 32% less likely to sell them. That being said, however, there is a segment of men, albeit very small one, that are active in this space. And if they're active in it all, men are most likely to be selling products from Rodan & Fields, Avon, and the Pampered Chef. So interestingly, Avon has been promoting a brand logo that labels them as the company for women, but considering the fact that they're sort of in Simmons' top 3 brands for direct sellers for men, they may at some point want to consider that and see what they can do to expand more and consider men as some of their primary customers. Okay, and at least when it comes to dads, opportunities for men with the direct sellers may be correlated to some extent with opportunities that exist for men in this beauty space as a whole. Our data show that dads are over-indexing in the purchase of a number of beauty and grooming products within the last 30 days. Cologne and facial grooming supplies are not surprisingly at the top of the list, but we're even seeing activity in other products such as hair and skin supplements. And this could really tie back into men's interest in subscription boxes, as if you'll remember from the previous section, the beauty and personal care boxes are at the top of the subscription interest list. And offerings such as the Beard Club and Dollar Shave Club already indicate that retailers have caught on to the opportunity with men across both spaces, but there's really opportunities for others to kind of jump on this bandwagon. So with that, we've really reached the end of this data presentation, but I wanted to quickly recap everything that we've talked about so far, because I know there's been a lot. So first, innovation in the retail space has done much to redefine what it even means to shop and who's doing the shopping. Every innovation is bringing more men into the fold and making it less and less possible to say that retail is an arena that's quote unquote just for women. Men's propensity to shop online and to a lesser extent in stores is increasing, and in both areas they're motivated by technology and new and unique opportunities for an engagement. Third, dads, and among them millennial dads specifically, are really driving the uptick in men's involvement in the retail space, and marketers should consider them the primary targets across all types of storefronts and really across all types of products. Lastly, despite all of men's recent engagement in retail, there is more room to grow targeting efforts, and marketers should really give men more credit for their involvement in holidays, special event, and beauty and shopping, and find ways to give them a more active role in direct seller operations. So here I'm going to pause and I'm going to turn things back over to Ashley, who will take your questions at this point.
Awesome. Thank you, Gretchen. Great job. So like Gretchen mentioned, we are going to be moving into the Q&A portion of the webinar. If you do have any questions that you haven't sent over, you can go ahead and send them over now in the questions feature of the GoToWebinar panel. So with that, let me go ahead and get started. First, we have a question. Can you say any more about millennial dads and their motivation for subscribing to subscription boxes? What do they think they're getting out of these services?
Yeah, sure. That's actually a great question. And we did ask our respondents in our survey, among those who said that they were subscribing to subscription boxes, we asked them why they were doing so for either themselves or someone in the household. And based on that data, the first thing I'd say is that these boxes really seem to appeal to millennial dads because, again, they're representing something new and different in the retail space. More than 40% of this group say that subscription boxes let them try products that they wouldn't otherwise purchase. And they're actually about 1.5 times more likely than all the shoppers that we surveyed to say that they have this motivation. Convenience is also another important thing for millennial dads. About 36% are saying that they're spending less time choosing products because they're getting things that are pre-selected for them in a box. And they're actually 14 percentage points more likely than all of our shoppers to share this sentiment. And the last thing I'd say here, as far as it applies to millennial dads, is that more of them are inclined to consider subscription boxes to be a good gift. About 28% are saying that subscriptions are a unique gift, and 19% are saying that they really like the surprise of opening a subscription box. So given what we've discussed already about bringing more men into the fold with holiday and special event shopping, promoting subscription boxes as gifts for events might be another good way to go with retail.
Great, thank you. And then another question that we got a lot of, because everybody loves social media these days, is how does social media play into this space? And have you noticed if it has an impact in how people are shopping?
Yeah, obviously, as people are spending more time online, social media usage is increasing too, and there are more and more ads and sales promos that are popping up on all types of platforms, specifically on Facebook. We have data from our study that shows that as a group, men are a little bit less likely than women to have made purchases either on or inspired by something that they've seen on social media in the last 6 months. It's about 24% versus 30%. But the shares increase quite a bit when we look at our golden group of the millennial dads. About 51% of these men have made social media purchases in the last 6 months. And the share is still a bit behind millennial dads are a bit behind millennial moms. In terms of how they're making these purchases, millennial moms are at about 54% versus the 51%. But it again tells us that whether it's social shopping or some other kind of internet-based purchase like a subscription box, the young dads are the constantly emerging target group in this space. And in terms of specific product areas to focus on, about 19% of millennial dads say that they've purchased men's clothing either on social media or because of something that they saw on social media that motivated their purchase. And 19% are also saying that they've purchased alcohol as a result of something that they've seen on social media or directly from social media. So this share is pretty significant. Because it's nearly 10 times that of all of the shoppers we surveyed. As a whole, just about 2% of our shoppers that are aged 21 or over say that they purchased alcohol because of social media in the last 6 months. But what we see trending here with millennial dads may be to some extent linked to the fact that these men, as we've seen, are already over-indexing with online purchases of alcohol in general. So social media may be an outlet from which they can be doing so.
Okay, thank you. Another question we have is this data based on millennial men who are single parents, or is it a blend of married and unmarried?
Well, our data can really be cut in any way, but the way that we pulled the data for the purposes of this study was just to look at millennial men and then millennial dads as entire groups. But again, if you were to purchase the study, you could cut the data and look at married versus unmarried too.
Okay, great. And then you mentioned to not ignore men in the beauty space. How do you suggest targets, like our potential clients, go about doing that? If they're already buying some things, what are retailers supposed to do to encourage more sales?
Here I'd really say that any marketing promotions in this space should focus on value for the money. We asked all of our respondents about their general attitudes towards purchasing any beauty and personal grooming products, and about 21% of the men that we surveyed agreed a lot that most beauty products are too expensive. So that's a key area. But I'd say also that aside from the cost, retailers should focus again on ways that they can offer men something that's new and different, and done through some kind of an engaging experience. And this is again especially true among the millennial dads that are over-indexing with the product purchases in the beauty and grooming space. Millennial dads are actually more than 2 times as likely as all of the shoppers that we surveyed to agree a lot that they're more likely to buy beauty products from retailers that can make shopping some kind of a social event. And they're actually 4 times as likely as all of the shoppers to agree a lot that they'll sometimes buy a beauty product just because it's coming from a unique place.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we are kind of reaching the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and get things wrapped up for us. Again, Gretchen, thank you so much for your wonderful presentation that was filled with a lot of great information. And thanks a lot to our attendees for your time and attention today. If we were not able to answer any questions that you did send through via the question portal, we will be addressing those offline and following up with you later today. If you have any questions that you are unable to ask, you can send them through really quickly before the end, or feel free to email them to us or your account manager. As said, we did feature data here from our retail trends and technology study. If you're interested in learning more about this study, please just go ahead and reach out to your Simmons account director. Or if you are not a current client or don't know your account director, feel free to send an email to info@simmonsresearch.com and we'll get you all taken care of. Again, each attendee will be receiving a recording of today's session that will be coming in the next few business days, so just keep an eye out for that. And it will also be put up on our website for you to access. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for your time and attention, and enjoy the rest of your day.